I will meet everyone. No one is, unless you have the floor to speak, because we don't obviously need to get others distracted. What's going to happen this evening is, I would, like I said, we will start. Once more, we've started. Thank you and welcome this evening, everybody, to this video conference series titled COVID-19 Turning Crisis into Opportunity. Our topic today is State of the Nation, Nigeria at a Precipice. We thank Governance Index for making this platform possible. Governance Index is a social enterprise dedicated to promoting purposeful leadership around the world. Governance Index is offering this public service to drive the needed national conversation to facilitate purposeful and impactful leadership in government and organizations for social good. I mean, as many of us know, in the last couple of weeks, we have held several conferences where we had people like Chief John Nyanwodo, the President General Hanez Igbo, Pa Ayo Adebanjo, Elder Statesman, and the Fanifere leader. And we had Dr. Petros Pogo from the Middle Belt, Yinka Odumakin, Ankyo Briggs, Governor Mimiko, and co, and so on. And we also had other guests like the Elder Statesman, Alhaji Tanko Yakasai, Adamu Gaba II, Professor Morisi, when we discussed vaccination bill implications for Nigeria. We had the former CBN Governor, Professor Soludo, when we discussed COVID-19 and oil price crash and its implication for Nigeria. For the conversation today, with us here are Chief Chukwuemeka Ezeife, former Governor of Anambra State, Professor Femi Olufunmilade, academic at Igbinedion University, Okada, Edo State, Nigeria. And we have Mr. Valentine Ozigbo, immediate past president and group CEO of Transcorp PLC. Also, the last but not the least is Mr. Dr. Katch Ononuju, Director General at the Heritage Center, Abuja. For the conversation this evening, I will be your host. I remain Maazi, Tochukwu, Ezeoke, and Mr. Daniel Elombah, the CEO, Elombah Communications Limited, will be the moderator. We have a house rule this evening. Everyone will be placed on mute. Please do not try to unmute yourself unless you are asked to do so. We need to bring in some sanity, make sure that no one speaks when not asked to. Please, if you're on camera, make sure that you dress appropriately. We have had some incidents where where people didn't dress appropriately. We thank you for your understanding. To this topic today, the former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, in one of his recent piece that he wrote, I think about 3 days ago, he expressed shock regarding the first quarter 2020 financial report in the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy from the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget, National Planning. The report showed that Nigeria has spent a total of 943.12 billion in debt servicing. The federal government retained revenue for the same period was 950 billion. This means that Nigeria debt to revenue ratio is about 99%. Let that sink in for a moment, people. 99%. Invariably, that means that Nigeria is only paying the minimum payment to cover our interest charges, and the principal money that we have borrowed remained untouched and possibly growing. Now, Atiku in his submission concluded that Nigeria is robbing our children to pay our own greed. And we have squandered the opportunity of a future generation by bequeathing them debt that they neither incurred nor they enjoyed. We have seen borrowing that have left the Northeast, the Southeast, scratching their head if they are still part of this nation called Nigeria, whereas they will be among those that will still pay this money that is being borrowed. Question this evening is, the state of the nation, is the Nigerian state. On this note, I would want to start with to call my good brother, that is Dr. Katch Ononuju, to please take the podium at this moment and X-ray this for us. Is Nigerian state working, or are we actually at that point of precipice? Thank you very much. Katch, you can now unmute yourself and make your contribution. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a very great honor to have me start. I am very happy to speak. And I will start by telling you that I believe this is the best time to be born a Nigerian. I also believe very much that there is a lot of advantage in what we are having today as Nigerians. I will say that there is an unintended advantage in having Buhari sustain his incompetence of our diversity and also continue to employ nepotism as a policy tool for his work this tenure sitting as president of Nigeria. I'm saying this because historically it's been us, Igbo, that were misconstrued to be the problem of Nigeria. Because, don't forget, our country was colonized twice by the Fulani over the Hausa states and the British across all lands. But at independence, the British left and the Fulani stayed behind. And you can see it is that they are staying behind that they have used to undermine progress in the Hausa areas and also undermine the progress of the North. And I believe that very undermining of progress of the North is the reason why the country's progress has been stunted. As I speak to you today, as part of that stunting of Nigeria's progress, today, Hausa land represents the area with the largest concentration of children without access to formal education than anywhere else on earth. It is followed by the Pakistanis and the Pashtunis in Afghanistan, because the elementary institution in Hausa land is the same as the madrasas in both Afghanistan and in Pakistan. Now, we as Nigerians, we have now embraced democracy, and I will say, in 20 years of democracy, we have suddenly seen that the Fulani are not very comfortable with democracy. Why? They don't have numbers. And because they don't have numbers, and because democracy is a numbers-based business, that's why they are doing all they are doing currently to try to delegitimize Nigeria's democracy. Today, as I speak to you, the Fulani are not only a nuisance in the southeast where the Igbos are, the Yorubas have today formed a multi-group against them. They do not have any welcoming embrace in Taraba, where the Jukun, Zukutel, the Chamba, the Kaka, the Pansa are against them. Not in Plateau, where they are currently killing the Birons. And of course, you know the problem we have now in Gendiri. They are fighting in Bachama Newman against the Bachama in Adamawa State. They are also fighting against Igbo, Kotu and Igbinedion, and of course the Gala in Kogi State. So what I will actually advise our people is they should be calm. Why? Those who sought to undermine us have now also been found out to be the major problem of Nigeria. I believe that Buhari has unintendedly built a Nigerian consensus against his people, and in this I refer to the Fulani Redentist movement. You hear about the kidnappings You hear about the raid against indigenous rural farmers. These are committed by those that Buhari sought to build settlements for when he begged states to give him land for him to build Ruga. Ruga did not materialize. And of course, the areas in the south refused to yield their land. And that's why you're today seeing the war in Katsina, in Zamfara, and Sokoto, where today the Fulani are inviting other Fulanis who speak Bambara and Wolof from Senegal, from Mali, from Gambia and Guinea to come here and sustain this crisis. And when I think about disruption, I tell people that the democracy has been very disruptive to the Fulani and that we should not worry because Buhari's presence is tenured. It is it cannot be more than 4 or 8 years. And when he finishes, they want to, because they can. The Fulani are Yemenis here first to the Kanuri areas, and during the time of the Kanem-Borno Empire, the Sheikh who refused them, they were also rejected by the Mande in Fota Toro. They were also rejected by the Mandinka in Fota Jalon. They were only accepted by the Hausa in Gober. They were given a space in Gober to stay, from where they now use to launch attack against the Hausa, kill Sarki Yufa, and as I speak to you today, no Hausa man is emir anywhere in Hausa land. That because of its embrace of democracy, we now have the last colonial masters, the Fulani, now to reacting violently. And I want to tell every Igbo man that we should actually be happy at where we are. Our inability to explain to other people what we saw that was wrong in Buhari and the fellow Fulani redentists is what people have finally found out from Buhari's incompetence in managing Nigeria's diversity and the foolishness of a lot of his policies, especially the policy of exclusion, which we call generally nepotism. And I blame those Igbo people like Governor Dave Umahi, his fellow PDP man with me, but foolishly thinks that a man who cannot appoint his brother, Megad, can actually make him king. And that's why I refer to him every time. I say, Mo, I think this is an existential period. We should be very, very mindful of how we foolishly trust people so that we do not end up like Hausa who trusted the Fulani and then ended up losing their kingdoms. Today, Hausas are not emirs anywhere in Hausa land, even though they dominate the Northwest by up to 85% of the population. Today, Hausas are the poorest people in the country, poorest people on earth, and their area is home to the largest concentration of humanities children without access to formal education. What I want to tell off this confusion called Nigeria, arranged by the British, and I think the British did well. But then, now that they have gone, it is left upon me and you to complete that which our forefathers did not complete, which is either we make Nigeria a successful nation, or, as I hear, we sustain agitation for that which will force other people to come to the table. Because I believe and I agree, power does not concede without a demand. So we must make some demands. Either we demand for the moon, and if we're settled with an estate downstairs, that will be better. But power never concedes without a demand. It has never done, and it will never do. So I think this is a very good time, and I do not think any Igbo man should despair, because this is a good time to be born a Nigerian. We today dominate this country in education. We dominate in direct domestic investment. We also dominate in a very, very important part of this awareness. We've been able to teach our children about God. We've been able to give them good education. We've also been able to raise strength of awareness, and that's what I think is good. The quality of awareness today in Nigeria is unprecedented, and I believe tomorrow is a good time. I'm in Abuja here. This afternoon, I returned from Sokoto. I went to visit places where there are crises, places in Zamfara, in Maru, in Anka, in Angobe, and Esenewu. The problem that we complained about back home in the East is also available here in the North, because Buhari allowed refugees from Mali, from Central African Republic, to come into Nigeria, and then he engineered the issuance of Nigerian identity papers to them, and you see them coming down to the South. If anybody you catch doing something that is very un-Nigerian, tells you he's a Nigerian, ask him where is he from. The people that just caught in Ebony that claim from the Nasarawa state, they don't come from there. Fulanis are not indigenous to Nasarawa state. And this is the reasons why I think, let the police officers who arrest these people, take them to where they claim they come from. And one by one, we'll build our case to see that these people are not Nigerians. These are migrants, refugees who are here because of the crisis in Mali, because of the crisis in Central African Republic. We must now come together as one people, as Igbo. Igbo, we were the original ones who connived with the British. When Olufunmilade from Ezeoke connived with the British, got friendly with Lord Wilberforce, he continued to preach to William Wilberforce until Wilberforce, through his work, achieved the proclamation after about 266 years of slavery. Even though, yes, I agree, we're not yet free, and the country today in Igbo land, the Fulani who came from Yemen want to imprison us. I believe if we come together, work together, and they're very, very alert and sensitized about what today is, we will be able to defeat those who seek to undermine us, who seek to also jump upon our ancestral lands. This is a time for us, no matter where we are, to come together. Come together.
Dr. Tachi, sorry, Maazi Ezeoke here. Sorry that I jump in a little bit. You know, our conversation here, I mean, we know some of us are Igbo, and we have other, also other ethnic nationalities here. The question basically, as I alluded, was we have, for instance, the Nigerian nation has a debt crisis issue. Now, we are not even generating enough. And we have seen, I probably would have want you to probably go towards where we can see a clear marginalization. Let's say, for instance, the issue of loan, where loan is being taken, and one section of the country doesn't have any project that is cited within their territory. And these loans, and as Atiku Abubakar alluded to, that we are taking so much loan, and that we are obviously, the way we are going, we have nothing to bequeath to our children except debt burden. Does it mean that Nigeria, as it stands today, is basically driving into a place that is going to be hard for Nigeria to recover? You know, I take, you know, when you started making allusion to the Fulanis, and that's fine. But let's bear in mind that this is a national conversation where we look at it from a more holistic view as Nigerians. And because at the end of the day, if the nation crashes, it's going to be, you know, it's going to affect everyone. Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, Efik, Ibibio, everyone is in this mess together. Sorry if I broke your line of thought.
No, you did not break my line of thought. You only helped to emphasize that where I was going to also has some other legs. What I'm talking about is exactly what you touched on. And I will talk about where you touch on, because there is now a borrowing, which is also based on the fact that we, Igbo, will also pay. But in that borrowing, we, the Southeast, are excluded. That's what I'm telling you about. Buhari's employment of nepotism as policy in listing those who will gain from the borrowing is totally unacceptable. And it is part of this same thing that I'm talking about. Yes, I have talked about his nepotism and the way it has now gone on to undermine national security. You have now brought about his nepotism and the way it has also gone on to advise his mindset in regards to emplacement of infrastructural benefits as a consequence of this money that he is borrowing. That is where we are. Buhari does not believe in Nigeria, and he is taking money right now. And that money he's taking, Edo State is not part of it. The entire Southeast is not part of it. Yet, we own part of the oil that will be used from its receipts to offset this borrowing. And of course, as you rightly pointed out, Atiku's position that we are borrowing the future generations into debt. And not that we are borrowing actually to commit to national progress. No, we're actually borrowing to consume. This is one of the worst forms of corruption. We are borrowing to consume. You look at that expenditure plan, you'll see that 40% of the money being borrowed actually goes to consultancy. So it's all part of this thing that I've been talking about. Buhari's employment of nepotism in his own mindset to promote the aspirations of simply one tribe, his people, the Fulani, has undermined our confidence in the Nigerian project.
Okay.
That's why I tell people, no matter how bad he has shown his incompetence in managing our diversity, nobody should despair. Okay. Because what he is doing is probably trying to create space for those who will steal money. You're not going to see that money anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I know you, when you are fired on, you know, you're already fired on. Thank you very much for your contributions. And I take two things away here. You said that now is a very good time to be a Nigerian and that Buhari doesn't believe in Nigeria. Anyway, I'll leave these for people to also take note, and we'll get to the question session. On this note, I would like to invite Dr. Val Ozigbo, the former MD of Transcorp. So Dr. Val, please, you now have the floor. Please, can we make it 10 minutes? I will use the opportunity. So, sorry, Dr. Val, before you start, I will use the opportunity to welcome Chief Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezeife, the former governor of Anambra State. There were some challenges, but now I am happy that he's here. Now, we are welcome to this conversation. So, Dr. Val, can you now go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Maazi, and thank you, my dear brother Katch. I have to always salute your passion and, of course, the burning desire to get our Nigeria on the right track. I mean, before I go into the topic, I'd like to just react very briefly to some of comments from Katch, very briefly. And I'd like to say that, yes, we do have a lot of problems. COVID actually now has, you know, kind of unraveled our nakedness in the marketplace. But also like to look at things from the very positive dimension. And I'd like to repeat a story, a video that I saw recently regarding, you know, 3 categories of people in any given society. This is coming from what the Greeks bequeathed to us. I think it was one Dr. Colchester that mentioned this on the Naga Day from, you know, presentation that he made. And he said there are 3 categories of people. One, he calls the idiots. Two, he called the tribalists. And the three, he called the citizens. And the idiots, not the just people being stupid like we understand it from our own Nigerian perspective, but rather people who are self-centered, who just think about themselves alone. And but for the tribalists, they go a little bit beyond themselves, but they think more about their ethnic part and not minding what is indeed for the common good. And then for the citizens, what you find there is the ideal people who understand that their rights end when the rights of others begin. And so when you have a lot of people who are able to act and think like citizens, you see that nation building begins to start. And for me, I go further with that story to say, in every man, we actually find both the idiot, the tribalist, and the citizen. But what we need to try and do as a people is to see how we can project the citizen more. In fact, if possible, 90%. Of course, sometimes you have to think about your tribe and yourself, but let's think more about what we call the enlightened self-interest. And this for me is a fundamental shift that we need to imbibe as a country. So we can actually have Nigeria. We still don't have Nigeria yet. We don't have a country that is cohesive, that is synergistic, that is together. And so it is important that we begin to look at things purely from a fair, transparent point of view, and not just to benefit a few or a minority or a group, and to the satisfaction of others. So what I'm saying here, therefore, is whereas I do agree that a lot of things have gone wrong, let's begin to think and shift our mindset this way so that we can begin to actually take advantage of our diversity. Our diversity can be a source of strength and not a source of weakness. And so I am begging Nigerians to heed the advice to become more citizens than otherwise. Now, going straight into the topic, I actually do agree with Vice President Atiku Abubakar when he rhetorically asked that question about whether Nigeria is on a precipice, is on a brink. And the truth is, when you talk about, and the emphasis here is about the debt burden, debt to GDP ratio and debt service ratio. And there's a big difference between the two. Before even COVID, because I bring now the impact of COVID in this conversation, but before COVID, we've always lamented about our debt profile. And so on one hand, we think that the debt stock is rising. And number two, when you then begin to average that with the volume of our GDP, you begin to see numbers that begin to sound a bit scary. People may argue that for developed countries, if they get debt to GDP ratio of up to 60%, then they're okay. In our world, the developing countries or underdeveloped countries, you find that typically they use about 40% benchmark. So that when you look at this, Nigeria been from 27% a couple of years ago now to about 31, 36%. You may think, oh, okay, we're still within a boundary of sustainability, but no, let's shift away from desktop. As a matter of fact, as an accountant that I am, and I think that people should know, it's almost like comparing your debt to your revenue in a private business. Really, the measure the clear measure we all need to use is the debt service ratio, because that's actually what defines your bankruptcy, your inability to meet your obligations when they fall due. So to that extent, we have a big problem. And what former Vice President and the presidential candidate of PDP had said was about having a first quarter revenue matching the debt service. And if those statistics can be know, refuted. I hope my internet is okay. I hope I'm being heard because I'm getting a warning here. So to that extent, you find that the debt service ratio, being a clear indicator, should give us a source of concern. And part of the reason is, on one hand, debts don't come down unless you pay them. And we're not even talking about the maturities of these debts, because what we find is that you may see a scenario where service levels may be low at this point, but they begin to grow, especially when you have lump sum repayments on debts that are falling due in the near future. So you find that your problem can actually be exacerbated when those maturities fall due. And therefore, debt level may actually be going up, and that is a source of concern. How much more when we actually borrowing more to complicate our problems? Now, on the converse, look at the GDP, look at the revenue that we earn. These have been, dealt a major blow as we speak, and this is the real source of concern. We're not just talking about the oil revenue; it's also across board, whether tax revenue, whether customs revenue, and with what is even happening in oil, you begin to see the huge manifestation of our inefficiency as a country. And because a lot of what we've been dealing with from around the world, around Nigeria, is just reacting to the crisis and not even going to the fundamental issues. And we can also touch on that if we have the time. But what I'm saying here is that if we don't take our time, we actually can be on the brink, but we can stop it if we do the right things. Again, we can focus on that. I want to emphasize here that we have problems. If you look at that GDP and look at even the constitution of GDP, see where agriculture is about 50%, where service 29%, service industry, service is 50%, and industry about 27%. When you bring all this together, you find that COVID is actually beginning to attack these areas. If you look at service industry, for instance, the travels, the hospitality are almost coming to the brink, and in fact, in some cases, dead. And with the failing businesses, with unemployment, with lack of productivity, in fact, on the agricultural side, if we're not even taking advantage of the rainy season right now, we will begin to see the impact much later. So what I'm saying, therefore, as we begin to see the manifestation of COVID, and we see that the debt servicing is also remaining constant or even increasing, you find that we will get to a point where we can no longer generate enough to pay for the debts that are falling due. And this is what defines bankruptcy. And so what I'm saying, therefore, is we have to be very careful. And if we have time, we will actually go into the utilization of these debts. To what extent have we been able to utilize these debts judiciously? Coming back to the point you made about how are we, not just sharing this across the geopolitical zones, but even for me, more importantly is to what extent where is the project cited rather than where is the project viable. Because when you bring the viability question, you find that you can still achieve the fairness across the geopolitical divide. The point is, we must be Nigerian. We must be citizens in everything that we do, both in governance and as a people, as individuals. I want us to get the learning of COVID. Let this COVID put this shock into us to deal with things, very appropriately. And with COVID, we have been led by our nakedness. There's no other time for us to consider how to restructure this country, how to make it more efficient, and like I use the word, how to value engineer Nigeria, how to shift Nigeria and get a bit more efficient, how to cut all the massive waste we see in governance, how to streamline our processes and our our civil service and make them more efficient.
Thank you very
and
much.
this is why we need to emphasize competency. Competency in anything that we do, especially as we choose our leaders. Thank you, Maazi.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Val. That is, you know, a very wonderful presentation there. And I think I need to, at this juncture, bring the third speaker. That is Professor Femi Olufunmilade, you know, joining us from Benin, Edo State. Professor, you have the floor now. Professor, well, thank you once more and welcome to the conversation this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maazi. I want to say that COVID-19, that is where I want to start, is like Dr. Katch Ononuju said, there is no better time to be a Nigerian. Yeah, indeed, there is no better time because COVID-19 was the underbelly of our underdevelopment as a country. Most of the problems we are having today, they are manifestations of the crisis of underdevelopment. That is why our well-being has been zigzag. Sometime we had oil boom, and it appears that we were on top of the world. Our naira was strong. We were internationally mobile. Foreign investors were trooping into Nigeria. Then when the oil boom became doomed, prices went down, everything turned around negatively. Balance of payment problems set in. We could no longer pay for our basic imports. Our industries were not able to import required raw materials because we were already industrializing in the 70s when you saw a number of assembly plants, a number of cocoa processing industries, etc., you know, springing up. So, but because ours has been a monocultural economy that is dependent on oil, and we've never taken the advantage of the oil income to develop other sectors like agriculture, manufacturing. Today we are talking of ICT as a major economic sector. We find ourselves in a situation where anytime the oil prices go down owing to external factors, then we are in trouble. So now that we have COVID-19 bringing a slump to economies worldwide, our underbelly of our underdevelopment again has been exposed. We realize that a lot of what we need, we are not getting the required foreign exchange to import them. I say this is the good time to be a Nigerian because it offers an opportunity for us to do a rethink and to grapple with our problem at the base. We must transit this state of import dependency to a state of basic self-sufficiency in terms of those basic necessities that we need to survive as a people. Food is one of them, and that's very elementary. Clothing, shelter, building materials. We thank God for the likes of Dangote. We are no longer a net importer of cement. But what about the other things? Roofing sheets and other accessories. Are we self-sufficient? The answer is no. So the borrowing aspect, I will want to say, will not be bad altogether if we are going to get value for the money being borrowed. And if the money being borrowed are going to be deployed where our economy will be assisted to come out of the quagmire of underdevelopment. I would like to see money going into the production of our basic needs. I look at the statistics of two countries, Vietnam, and which other country, Bangladesh. The money they generate from the export of clothing materials. That of Bangladesh for 2018 was about $33 billion. And that of Vietnam was also in the neighborhood. That same year, our total earnings from oil was about $32 billion. In other words, Vietnam and Bangladesh, these are two backwater countries that are just grappling to crawl out of the nadir of poverty. The money they make from one item alone that require value added, that requires self-effort, that is not like oil that we just dig from beneath the soil and export, is more than what we made from oil. That is just one item. I'm not talking about other things that they have produced. And we're a country of 200 million people. So COVID-19 is telling us that we are going to do the issue of economic self-sufficiency as a country has to do with being able to produce what human beings need. There is no magic to it. China became, I did my PhD thesis on China. China became rich today because it developed its capacity to produce basic human needs. What China gets annually from the export of toys, teddy bears, our oil does not get 1/4 of it. From the export of toys. Do you require advanced technology to produce toys? It's just to make up your mind that this is the way we want to go. This thing will bring money. Let us assist those who have the capacity to do it and let them do it. But our problem has been the failure of leadership. The leadership is not strategic. Our leadership is not anchored on long-term planning. Being able to have a holistic view of various economic indices and being able to set create a roadmap that in a year, this is what we want to be able to produce. In 2 years, in 3 years, we have policy inconsistencies. Most of those that are in the corridors of power over the decades are very unpatriotic set of people. Imagine during the tenure of President Shagari, they set up a presidential task force on the importation of rice, whereas this country has the required climatic conditions, the varieties of it, whether lowland rice, whether upland rice, whether swampy rice, we should be exporting rice. But rather, a whole presidential task force was set up and headed by Alhaji Umaru Dikko, then Minister of Transport, to import rice. I knew someone then who was the director, National Series Research Institute, late Christopher Obachola. He was summoned to Ministry of Federal Ministry of Science and Technology for coming out at that time to say that his institute has a plan to make Nigeria self-sufficient in rice production. They summoned him. He told me he's late now. He died in 1995, but he told me because whenever he saw me being so passionate about how things should be done in the country, he told me one day, young man, take it easy. And he now gave me that example of what happened to him. He said I was dressed down by the you address a president import rice. When the president just set up a presidential task force on the importation of this same commodity. I just give that as an example. There are a litany of other examples. So we need a leadership that will help us. China did not attain what they attain today by carefree, anything goes kind of leadership. They assembled, there's what we call scientific planning. You will be able to say, okay, gold. We also have gold. South Africa's economy was transformed on mining industry, basically gold. We have gold in Osun State in Ilesha. We have it in Zamfara. Rather than it benefiting people, it was causing crisis there. So that leads me to another critical issue. It is clear that the federal government of Nigeria has taken upon itself more than what it can handle. There is need for this federal government to unbundle its responsibilities to the various states. We have 36 states. Any state that cannot fend for itself and its people, then let them face the music. That was what it used to be the spirit in the First Republic that we always look back to with some longing in us that, oh, when Awolowo was premier in the Western region, he was able to do this. At that time, they were remitting money to run the federal government, 20% of their revenue. It's not the other way around. The federalism, the fiscal federalism we have now is anti-developmental. States are made to look up to Abuja, to go and collect oil money. The incentive to look inward is not there. So I would want to suggest that the federal government under the APC should take a second look at the issue of restructuring in its manifesto. Why can't the governor of Zamfara be able to allocate mines to those who want to exploit gold in his state? Why must somebody travel all the way from Zamfara state to go to Federal Ministry of Mines in Abuja and then be going through all kinds of bureaucracy being tossed up and down? Why can't Osun State governor also have the power to do the same thing? Then you look at electricity. You can't have development without electricity. See where we are with so much money down the drain. What is the big deal about generating electricity? Why are we fixated to the concept of national grid? Can't we have state grid? A state should be able to generate, transmit, and distribute its own electricity. It's not rocket science. Why can't states have internet railway system? We travel abroad. I was in Houston some time ago. I saw there are multiple transportation options for you. There were, intra-city railway service. Why can't states have the same thing? So the powers at the level of the federal government should be unbundled. And an aspect of that is very critical right now because of the problem of insecurity we are facing is the issue of state police. The so-called Nigerian police force is largely maintained by the states. They are the ones buying them vehicles, patrol vehicles. They are the ones buying them raincoat, torchlight, walkie-talkie, and the rest of it. Whereas, when a commissioner of police misbehaves within the state, when criminals are operating and is not doing the needful, the state governor cannot sack him. And yet, he's taking so much from the state governor. That's an anomalous situation that should be discontinued. The fears that state police will be misused, some state governors will use it for political purposes, or that they are going to use it to break up the country, is unfounded. That is a very narrow way of thinking. Look at what the way people, lives are being lost daily in the north of this country. Most of them are farmers. They have never benefited anything from federal government. They can't go to their farms. A governor is now carrying money. I've seen 2 governors in the north saying it openly that they have given huge chunks of money to bandits to beg them to leave their states alone. Yet the bandits are unrelenting. Why can't these governors be given the power like in Zamfara? If the Zamfara state governor have the power to establish state police doesn't mean you will have the same type of police. If the major security challenges Zamfara is facing is from bandits in the forest, then Zamfara can invest in creating a forest ranger. That's a type of police. That they will even have stations, different stations, instead of in the city, right inside the forest there. They will have different sectors. Who is combing this sector? Who is combing that sector? They will be proactive and protect that state. How much will you, if you are going to be paying 1,000 youth, train them, equip them, and you are paying them, let's say 30,000 naira per month, and you have 1,000 of them, in a year you will be paying them 360 million naira. Is that up to what some state governors loot in the name of security vote? So the conversation we should be having in this country now is to make it clear that this country belongs to all of us and we are all stakeholders. We cannot be cringing before those that we elected to serve us and be begging them to do what is necessary. Look, in the Southwest, I was one of those that, you know, added my own influence and my own input into making sure that we resort to, we do something at the, by way of self-help. That was how Amotekun came up. Amotekun wasn't the initiative of our governors. It was a collective, it was a product of a collective will of a people under siege. You could no longer travel from Ibadan to Ife. They will be giving travel advisory at Obafemi Awolowo University. The road is not safe. This trip we are talking about is not up to 1 hour. Within a country that has a government, you could not travel from Benin, from Okada, about a trip of about 35 minutes to Benin. You will be afraid. There were bandits operating on the road everywhere. So it was within that milieu, we said, let's do something. Let's defy this federal government. Let's defy it. How can you say we should not protect ourselves? The Attorney General said his own bit. The Inspector General came with a red herring. He said he's going to community policing. I analyzed what he called, the way he described his idea of a community police. I shook my head for him. That you are a law officer. You are supposed to be in the business of protecting us, and you are playing politics with security. He said those community policing people, they will be volunteers. They are not going to be paid. He gave a kind of abstractive analysis of what it will look like. Where is he today? He just said that to discourage the formation of Amotekun at the time. But it's just Amotekun is pseudo police. We have an Anambra State Vigilante Service. Let's have state police. There will be a National Police Commission that will set guidelines in terms of training, in terms of modus operandi of recruitment, in terms of the caliber of weaponry, and even acquisition of the weapons. And there will also be sanctions for erring states. If a state governor makes use of it, will be misuse it, it will be criminally liable for it. I work in a university system. We have National Universities Commission that regulates the operations of universities, whether they are federally owned, state-owned, or privately owned. Before private universities came on board, a lot of people were scared. Oh, standard will fall and all that. And I'm telling you today that NUC itself has brought up a number of programs, a number of competition, and they discovered that products of private universities are on top in engineering, in medicine, and so on and so forth. So when we have state police, all this insecurity everywhere, the focus will be on the governors. It will no longer be on Buhari. Everybody is Buhari, 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 Buhari. If something happens in the corner
of Anambra, is Buhari. Something happened in the corner of Plateau, Buhari. By then, everybody will be looking at their state governor. What is our police doing? Will be the next issue. I'm working on a paper on state police because I've talked so much about this thing now that, and the more I'm delving into it, the more I'm saying that ours is the only federation in the whole world that has a centralized police command. Canada has a decentralized police command, it's a federation. United States has a decentralized police command. Even counties. County is not a local government, it's like a ward. Some big wards in the United States, they have what they call county rangers. They have their own police. It's like you say you are in a particular development area in Lagos that is highly congested. That the ward there, not the local government, can have its own police. In December, I was Johns Hopkins University. The state governor of Alabama was just approving state campus police for Johns Hopkins University because there were about 2 incidents of criminality. And these police will carry guns. They will have their patrol vans within the university area. They will have their detention center. But of course, they are subject to state laws within that environment. So, critical to whatever President Buhari wants to do with these loans is the need to secure this country. He cannot wait any further. He has just 3 more years to spend. I have been a part of his presidential campaign council for 3 consecutive times, 2011, 2015, 2019. And I was one of those who wrote that manifesto of the All Progressive Congress. The core element of that manifesto is restructuring. We need to go back to it.
Thank you.
The reason why restructuring is, yeah. So finally, what I want to say, let me just, on the issue of debt, I will quickly, there is so much to say, but so little time to say it. On the issue of debt, I want to advise President Buhari seriously that he should focus on projects that he will be able to deliver within the 3 years left of his administration. He should focus on those ones and deliver them, because if he makes the mistake of embarking on long-term projects, he will discover that the moment he steps aside, the next administration will not make it a priority. That is why we have a litany of uncompleted projects in this country. So that is that. And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much for, hold on. Thank you very much, Professor Femi, for that excellent contribution. Obviously, you outlined a lot of things, starting from leadership failure, lack of scientific planning, unbundling the exclusive list, APC, the failure of APC to stick to their manifesto, which you said at the beginning, and I started laughing. You said you're part of those that actually drafted the restructuring document that has been thrown in the dustbin. How do you feel as a professor who contributed his time, energy, and the intellectual input to draft something that was called a progressive manifesto, and suddenly the same government that you helped to come into power and comes in and takes those informations and the intellectual input that you have and just throw them away? How does it feel? I mean, that's just a question before I get to the next stage. How do you feel today sitting down here and you've seen that all the effort you've made in good faith has been thrown away?
Well, I want to say that maybe it has not been thrown away. We still have 3 more years.
But if it hasn't been done in 5 years, sorry, but it's actually it's not up to 3 years. It's about 2.5 years.
I want to be positive. You see, when it is time for something to be done,
yes,
you will be getting the kick from different angles. Before, the issue has been that the northern elites are afraid that I'm using state, restructuring is an omnibus concept that entails different things. It has its economic dimension, administrative element, it has its even security element. Let me just zero in on this issue of police, state police. Before, we used to think the narrative is that even recently, somebody like the former governor of Kaduna State, an elder statesman, I've forgotten his name, is a socialist. He was a governor in the Second Republic.
Is that
I can't
read. Musa, is it?
Balarabe Musa, Alhaji Balarabe Musa. He said that Southerners wanted state police because they are plotting to break it. I found it very, very unfortunate. But you see, there is no part of Nigeria that needs state police more than the northern states today. And they are already embarking on it as a form of self-help too. What do you call civilian JTF in Borno? Was it not because whenever the military run to another trouble zone, fighting Boko Haram, before they return, the Boko Haram people are overrunning villages, overrunning towns again. That was why the youths in those areas gathered themselves together and said, let us form a kind of self-defense force for our communities. They didn't start writing President Buhari or taking permission from the Inspector General of Police. When the military saw what they were doing, they embraced it. They even armed them, gave them guns. Yes. Okay. So when the time for an idea has matured, if you do not embrace it and accept it, then you are going to throw away the baby with the bath water. Okay, there will be more of self-help. A lot of people will begin to defy your authority and begin to do things their own way. So I am believing and I'm hoping that reason will prevail within these remaining 3 years of President Muhammadu Buhari. He himself and those around him will see the need to begin to embrace this well thought out manifesto of the APC that we believe is transformative.
Thank you.
So it's not too late. 3 years is a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. There is an adage in Igbo that says, meaning, I don't know how to translate. I don't honestly know how to translate that one. But it means that someone was told about something and, you know, he was doubting until I see it before I on that note, I would bring, I want us to do something here. We will allow those who have made presentations to ask follow-up questions. In this case, I must bring to our notice here that Dr. Ezeife has joined us twice, and I think he's still having some issues, so he has left twice. But now we want to use the next 10 minutes to 15 minutes for the speakers to ask follow-up questions to each other in case there is any follow-up and make further contributions. Then after that, we will take general questions from all the participants, all the attendees, if they do have questions. And when we get to that point, please, if you want to ask questions, you only have to raise your hand. I can see 2 people here are already raising their hand to ask questions, but we will come to your questions the moment we finish with the speakers. Daniel Elombah, do you have any input at this stage? Or, you know, should we go back to the speakers to make their further clarifications based on the, I mean, obviously they've had the 3 inputs now, so we can make further clarifications if any position is shifting. Dan, are you there?
Yes, it appears Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezeife is not.
No, he's not. He's left. I've just spoke to him. I think he's still having, he joined, he couldn't hear us. So I don't know. I think it's maybe because of his device. I don't know, but he's left again.
Okay, so let's give this opportunity to, if they have additional briefly, and then we start taking questions from the audience. Then.
Yes, I would start with Katch Ononuju. Again, Katch, you can now unmute yourself. You've had the submissions made by Professor Femi Olufunmilade and Val Ozigbo. So I don't know if you have further input to make. Thank you.
Yes, I am happy to hear Professor Femi speak, and I'm also very happy that he has expressed his disappointment in regards to the baby that he helped to give birth to. But I will simply put that we are humans, and that we now need to come together. I've always preached for a pan-Nigerian consensus. It is us and Professor Femi that will build that pan-Nigerian consensus and be able to save our democracy, save our country, and save sub-Saharan Africa. Because as I have seen it, we are at a place where we historically have never been before. And for me, I'm very excited about this place. And that's why I keep telling people, this is the best time to be a Nigerian. Why? We have now gotten to a place where for the first time since the amalgamation by the British, we now have an avalanche of awareness suddenly available in our country. And this strength of awareness we have is what I believe we should use to sensitize those who are not yet sensitized, and then come together to fix our country. It is a shame that we are regarded on earth as a country with the largest concentration of children without access to formal education. If me and the Professor Femi can come together, I'm sure we can forget about the past, keep competitions aside on the tribal front, and then be able to save Nigeria. I think the Southeast, the Southwest must work together to save our country. No other time could we come to where we are right now. That's why I say, no matter what it is, that we say we must find the glimmer of hope in Buhari's incompetence in handling our diversity and also the foolishness of the policies. I do not believe anything will change because we've seen it all. Professor Femi and co were abandoned, and instead the president embraced the agenda of the Miyetti Allah. And I think we should simply admit, yes, we've been hard, and we should then plan for a better strategy next time if we are on to build a country. Because right now, we do not yet have a nation. What we have is a country respected for its contiguous borders, but we do not yet have a Nigeria that is a nation. I am very optimistic about tomorrow. I am also very happy that both my people and those in the Southwest are not happy at the sudden turn of their investments. I believe very much that there is a lot that we stand to gain if we're able to make Nigeria into a nation that we all can believe that this nation does work towards meeting our aspirations. I am very optimistic about that, and I believe that will come true. But for that to work, I need to work with Professor Femi now that he has seen that his bet did not win anything. He made a mistake. And of course, I'm willing to forgive and say we are brothers and let us work together for the sake of bequeathing to the generation unborn a nation that they can be very proud. Our fathers worked well. The first time they didn't get it right in 1960. The second time now that we have this avalanche of awareness, we are able to build a pan-Nigerian consensus and secure the Nigerian nation and stop all this nonsense. I'm happy he said that Amotekun arose out of a need to embrace self-help. Well, I'm also telling him it's also the same thing I've seen in Taraba, in Benue, in Plateau, in Kogi, and of course in the Southeast, where you have leaders who, for their own private selfish intentions, are willing to mitigate the security of the entire region. For me, that is the most serious problem right now, the economics will fall in. We've already seen that we can do very well economically. And I also am not happy that we have a lady prancing about just trying to speak so much grammar so as to be able to be allowed to steal so much money at the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. But I'm very optimistic that we'll get it right, even though we have now seen the mistakes involved in our poor judgments. I believe that we should come together. And in this case, I mean, the working together by the Southwest and the Southeast holds the key to fixing the Nigerian project. And from that, fixing the sub-region. Because those that Professor Femi has trusted are really not interested in Nigeria, premised upon a nation that looks after the aspirations of all. No, they seek Nigeria on their own terms. They seek Nigeria where subjugation will be what it is. And I come from a place where my people do not accept subjugation. And that's from all I have tried to study through the 60s has been my people's main offense. They refuse to acquiesce to subjugation. And that's that. So I believe that it's good we've come to where we've come to. And those who have made mistakes have recognized that, yes, they had very poor judgments. And then let us sit down now and work together to actually bet that Nigerian nation that our fathers originally intended that should be the right course for us all to pursue. Okay. I believe that is doable. I believe that is possible. I am very optimistic that we will do that if the leaders of the Southwest and leaders of the Southeast come together, as it is inevitably, because for the Southwest to, on their own, without prudence, to set purpose toward formation of a Motekun, which Professor Femi agreed to me, is a result to self-help. Simply means that we who are also challenged by people who speak Bambara and Wolof, not any of the Nigerian languages, would not win. For me, that's what I believe to be the most existential problem Nigeria has, not an economic problem. We have managers who can steer the economy to a better part. I do not think that's an issue. The idea of employing nepotism as a policy of states, for me, I believe that is not an APC policy. I believe it's also a consequence of the hijack of power by President Buhari. And that's why I believe the best that Nigeria can give is very much in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Katch. And I would be bringing Mr. Valentine. Okay, Valentine doesn't have much anything to say. So, Dr. Femi, I think we know what you've basically summarized your position. On that note, I will take questions in bulk. So I will be moving to questions now. I will take these questions in bulk. If you want to ask any question, you can raise up your hand. Oh, sorry, Dr. Femi, did you want to say anything? Sorry, Dr. Femi, did you want to? You can unmute yourself if you want to say something. Can you unmute yourself, yeah?
Oh, okay. What I just want to add to this is that there is a layer of government that most of us ignore. Where, of course, there is so much concentration of power at the center, but a lot of resources are also flowing into the states. At least they go on the monthly jamboree of collecting their federal allocation. So most of us don't pay attention to the states. We need to start holding at the regional level, holding our state governments to account. There's so much the governors of Ogun, Ondo, Oyo, Lagos, Ekiti, and the Osun states can do for the Southwest without looking up to the federal government. There is so much they can do. If they look inwards and they roll up their sleeves to work. Even as bad as the 1999 Constitution is, a lot is still in the hands of the state governors. Education, health, infrastructure, if they apply what they have and they look inward, agriculture has great potentials. What are they doing with those things? So our state governors, it is high time we start holding them to, accountable for a lot of things. Like the Amotekun thing, was it not the governors that were compelled to put it together in the Southwest? There is still much more they can do. Interstate roads, must they wait for the federal government to do that? Agriculture, must they wait for federal government? When you're traveling from one state to another, you see so much arable land, and you see so much youth in the cities without jobs. Why can't they establish farm settlements? Why can't they establish industrial parks? Why can't they create schemes for the people to know how to harness power from the little sprays around them? There is what we call small hydro. I went to train with the British Hydro Power Association at Craigside in near Newcastle upon Tyne, sometime back in 2009. And I was amazed that the little rivers we see, we can generate electricity from them. Why can't the states look into such things? Look into solar power generation. When Awolowo was premier of the old Western region, we were, now Dr. Ononuju is talking about Fulani colonization. That time we were still under British colonization. Everything that we are saying Awolowo did, 1951 to 59, Nigeria had not obtained independence. And he ruled up to as far as Delta. And you will see his imprimatur deity today, positively. So, and what I look at his budget is not up to that, by today's conversion, it's not up to that of the annual budget of Delta states. And he was able to do so much. So these state governors have a lot of loose funds in their hands. So we need to, begin to hold them accountable. We look at countries like the United States that are developed today. Do you know that until 1918, women were not even allowed to vote in the United States? Do you know that until the civil rights movement, blacks were not allowed to vote? How did they get all these rights? It was through street protests. We need to reinvent the culture of protest. We've heard about women riot. We've heard about the railway worker strike led by Pa Imodu. That was how we were able to get independence and get a number of welfare benefits even under colonialism. So right now, are we doing that? We need to be able to benchmark our governors and say, this is what we expect of you. They should give us account. This money, you don't just tell us this is your budget. How did you spend it? So if we want transformation, we want restructuring, more money, more responsibility to the states, we should start holding them to ransom now. And some of us that are elites, we should begin to think of regional development agenda and regional lobby group, regional protest group, so that our governors can sit up and charlatans will no longer be aspiring to rule us at the state level, because then they will realize that there is a lot of job to do. So that is one area we have been ignoring, because we are all fixated to Abuja and looking at one man who has amassed so much power by virtue of the 1999 Constitution. But our governors too have a lot to do. So that is one area that I want us to look at.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Femi, for that clarification. Obviously, when we talk about Nigeria being at the breaking point, it also implies the states. Now, there was I think that was yesterday, the budget IT, or budget it as it's called, shared a data that clearly showed what the 6 states of the Niger Delta have earned in the last year. So humongous, then you kind of start asking yourself, there is no development happening within the region that one can say, yes, there is judicious management of these resources that have been going in here. that applies to every other region as well. So while we talk about the federal government, it's clearly good that you pointed that out. We must also not forget about the state. We must also not even forget about the lowest tier of government. We must bear in mind, I think the local government gets about, is it 22% of the whatever is being shared every month. So they get substantial amount of money. That if this were genuinely, like you rightly pointed out, during the time of Awolowo, during the time of Desa Mbakwe, during the time of Ahmadu Bello, if these things were properly, not today that it appears everybody just go into governance just to, move on convoys and run people off the street and go with so much police escort and just engage in needless things that are avoidable. On that note, I will be taking the questions now. The questions will be taken in block. I will start with Nchekwube Mike Ntodonko. After that, Otumba Olabode Oseni, please get ready. Then whoever has the Hawaii Nova 3E, Arinze Godson Ibawa, please, you all get ready. Mike, you can unmute yourself now and ask your question.
Thank you. Sorry,
go ahead, Mike.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. This discussion is quite lively and very, very topical. I'm particularly interested in what Dr. Katch Ononuju said regarding our awareness. You see, we've all known that nepotism is taking root in Nigeria today, and it's not helping matters. That is what is driving the awareness. People are now aware that things are not going well, and everybody is agitating. I'm asking Dr. Ononuju in particular, do you not think that it will be better for the elites, the opinion movers in Nigeria to summon courage and address the question that Bola Ige posed when he was alive? He said, Nigeria must ask themselves, do we really want to be together? And if so, how? Thank you.
Thank you very much. On that note, I think the first person that actually raised hand is Mike Ntodonko. Mike, can you unmute yourself as well?
Yeah. Good evening, all. My question goes to Dr. Femi. Femi, my question is this: what is the best way to get the northern elites to accept restructuring of Nigeria? Because I believe this is the only way we can move forward. Without restructuring of Nigeria, the system will continue speaking grammars and all these things continue. But if we can get the northern elites to accept it, then I believe that we'll move to the best way to develop Nigeria, and other things will come in. So this is my question to Femi.
Thank you very much, Mike. Otumba Olabode, please. Otumba, you're on.
Good evening, all, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My question will be a little bit similar to the last speaker, but I want to say this, and I want to all of us to put it on record. The address so far, the presentation so far, has been I've been dealing with the causes and causes and causes of our problem. I mean, it is not difficult for some of us who can understand what they are saying to understand that these are causes. But what are the solution? And like the last speaker said, I think it's high time that we use this kind of platform, especially to start talking and dealing with solutions to our problems. The professor and the other doctors and so on, they should form a kind of a vanguard. They should form a kind of a front, a formidable front to be in terms of dealing with problems. Because these are solutions we will continue to discuss this kind of thing another 4, 5, 10 years. We've been doing this the last 60 years, presentation of different kind of papers at different levels. Yet we are yet to give ourselves light. We have no rules. We have nothing like the professor. I've been saying. So I think it's high time that will come if use opportunity like this, platform like this, finding solution to our problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think without without answering that question, in fairness, it will be very nice for me to point out here that the presentations were not only pointing out where the issues were, the presentations were also, gave solutions. Like Professor Femi alluded to the fact that we needed state police, we needed to unbundle the exclusive list. And because he believed in the solution, that's why he dedicated his time to help in writing the progressive manifesto, hoping that somehow that manifesto will be taken seriously. But sadly, we all know where we are now, that eventually it didn't work out the way it was planned. On that note, obviously he would still take that question anyway, but I just need to make that pointer. I will be inviting whoever is using Nova.
Yes.
Hawaii Nova 3.
Comrade Victor. Maazi.
Sorry?
Yeah, Comrade Victor.
Well, I'm not a mind reader. I would know. So, okay, that's Comrade Victor, please.
Yes. I'm glad to be part of this very discussion. My question goes to Dr. Ononuju and Professor Yemi. I'm quite very happy that both of them are chieftains of the major political parties we have in the country, the PDP and the APC. And I want to ask them, from the sincerity of their heart, is it hard for us to have the National Assembly, the Senate, and the House of Representatives come together to propose for a restructured Nigeria? Is it hard for the APC and the PDP in the National Assembly, most importantly, those senators and House of Representative members from the South, to propose for a restructured Nigeria? We had a conference in 2014, the former President Jonathan organized. Those papers are still there. And most of the senators we have today were there when those conferences were organized. So what stops APC senators from the South, PDP senators from the South, from proposing a restructured Nigeria, since we know we can't do that without the National Assembly, constitutionally?
Thank you very much. I would bring Arinze Godson Ibagwa.
Maazi, thank you very much. It's been a great work you've been doing. I've been following you on different platforms. Last Sunday I was there with Aniko Briggs and Co. Thank you. My question is this. I go straight to the point. My question is this. First two questions I have been asked in different forms by Mike Nchekube and the last person. Is about federalism, true federalism. It seems to me every other part of the country, apart from the North, believes in true federalism in Nigeria, whereby people control their resources, states control their resources and do what they want, and have a state police. And state police has been taught very well by Professor Femi, which is very good. The question still remains, what is stopping every other part of the country joining together and proposing this to the federal government of Nigeria? We know that the North will stop us one way or the other because they are benefiting from the status quo. How can we join together, the other parts of the country, to push for it? Well, 2 or 3 people have asked the same question, and this has been going on in my mind throughout this whole conference. So that's number one. The other one is this. Professor Femi talked about this, and I'm an engineer by profession. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer by profession. I know very much about micro hydropower. I live in the UK. I've researched about it as well. What is stopping each and every one of our governors from investing in this micro hydropower? There are streams, there are rivers, there are River Niger and all those things. You can cut out some part of these rivers and invest in micro hydropower and power your state one way or the other. Power has been decentralized today. It is no more just the federal government. You, as a state governor, can invest in micro hydropower. There are several ways of generating power. Power is a key in Nigeria. If we can sub power, so many other things just flourish.
Okay.
What is stopping states? And the last question is this, please. We ask, we congregate, we talk, we do all these things. Please, could someone tell me how we relate this to the federal government? Who are the right people that we talk to, and they will take it to the right persons? Because we say this in different forums, I've been in different forums, we say all these things, but how does it get to the right people in government for them to start making adjustments immediately? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. And I think okay, sorry, I'm going to take the next question. That is going to be Paul. Paul, can you unmute yourself? Paul, unmute yourself.
Yeah.
And please, can we make the question snappy?
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, Maazi Ezeoke. It's no doubt that from the crisis going on, that the nation needs good governance. And we know why we're yearning for building a more better, fairer society that is just and equitable, for every Nigerian. But my question is not far different from what every other person have asked. What's the strategy moving forward? How do we, I know Professor Femi has suggested, made some suggestions, but how do we get this across? How do we take action? How do we get the ball rolling to be able to make all these conversations and discussions more effective, to put it into progress? Okay, because yes, because if we start talking from morning till night, yes, we have made a good progress by using the platform to have a more serious conversation and lectures on this. But I think it's moment to take action. So if we can have a means of how to move forward and get it to the right people, and if Femi can share more light on this, I think it will be more helpful for people, because it's like everybody is asking the same question.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think now I would have to bring back Dr. Valentine Ozigbo, because I think I called him for the second time, but I thought he waved at me that he had no comment, but it appears he had. So I would call him back now. Doctor, can you make your submission and now take some of the questions as well?
Thank you so much, Maazi. And let me also especially thank my dear brother Daniel Elombah for this great platform. And it's been I've been totally enriched listening to my colleagues, my dear brothers, Professor Femi and Dr. Katch. The man is Mr. I still go with Mr. And I wanted to actually add on to what Prof had said. I know I'm taking us a little bit back, but for some reason the audio disappeared. I had to sign on to another device. And so when you actually called me, should give me a sign language. I'm having a problem here. But glad to be here to make another comment. What Prof had said about the need for us to restructure and providing those practical steps, especially when it comes to the issue of security, I have to totally agree with him. And but there's something we need to honestly take away from here, this conversation, which is the urgency of us doing things. The need for us to quicken the process and not just reacting to the impact of COVID, providing palliatives and stimulus, but actually going to the fundamental and getting things actually done. And I honestly do not share his optimism in getting a lot of things within the remaining 2.5 years. And part of the reason is his own, I call it disappointment. I also share in that. This is because one of the things I had hoped from the first term of this administration was actually to touch on the issue of restructuring. And there's a question that one of us asked about what happened to the National Constitutional Conference that was undertaken by the past administration. When this government came into power, one would have thought that, they should have, kicked on with that. And it does appear to me that having restructuring the APC manifesto was the fact the PDP had this started already. And so they knew that the hunger for it was high. And so to get everybody's attention was, so the question therefore was APC actually honest enough to put it in their manifesto? Otherwise, why hasn't anything been done? And why I don't share that optimism in this 2.5 years, a lot could actually happen. Is I'm also aware that when the decision came into being, they started this transition committee and had a fantastic team of people there over a 58-day period. And they came up with wonderful documents that preceded the APC manifesto. So it wasn't just the APC manifesto. And I happen to be one of the research persons, especially in the area of tourism, entertainment, and all of that. But that document has never been discussed publicly, how much more acted upon. In fact, that document shared, inputs as to what could be done in the first 100 days, first 6 months, and all that of the administration. And as a Nigerian, we all, happily participated in this. And I followed up with, not Alhaji Joda who chaired it, but some other team members there. And they've been very frustrated that nothing was done. But going again to what a friend said here, but let's focus more on what we I think Nigeria has to be more competitive than it is today. We need to fix this country. We need to totally value engineer Nigeria. We need to fix things. In fact, restructuring should be done every single year. What do I mean by that? Whatever is not working should be dealt with. We need to improve upon that. And so the idea that we must hold on to constitutions and provisions in them and in fact do nothing about them and go around the table and forget about the key issues that will make each part of Nigeria competitive is alarming. And there's no cohesion, there's no coordinated planning at the National Planning Commission. We're not data-driven, we're not leveraging technology, we're not doing a lot. And I don't want to repeat all the points that Prof has already made and my dear brother, Dr. Katch. They've captured a lot of these things that we need to do, but the urgency of it is what I'm talking about. I actually think that COVID, which is why again I agree with them what I said, that there's no better time to be a Nigerian. COVID has sent a shock wave in us. Let that quicken our enablement. Let that quicken the whole process of getting Nigeria on the right track. We are not making progress, and we must make progress. We must compete with the other part of the world. We must, push our best way forward, and we must, celebrate competency in everything that we do. We must cut our waste. We must. I had asked in one of my interviews, why can't we even collapse, Senate and National Assembly? What is this cost that we can't make a difference? Why are we having a bloated government? Civil service is inefficient. What is it that we can't, kaizen or value engineer or improve the process, better things, so that we can, because when you also borrow this money, we started from borrowing, and you layer it on inefficiency, it goes into the funnel and disappears. There's nothing we're doing. And when we're choosing projects, based on their bankability, based on their feasibility. You need to see why government needs to take a backseat, create the environment, and allow us to unleash the power of the private sector. Private sector holds the key. And then again, I agree with the point made about what we need to do at the state level and the regional level. And this is what part of the reason why some of us are going into politics now, leaving the private sector comfort to go into politics, because we are tired of seeing the mess around us. We need to fix this country, both at the local government level, regionally, and nationally. And this goes back to that story about the national question and being a proper citizen. So I'm very happy that I've been part of this conversation. And I believe Prof and Dr. other things to respond to the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have 3 more hands. I think, because we are coming to the end of this, let me basically take the 3 more questions, then we can now deal with it at once. I have here Chika. Please, Chika, can you raise your hand? Sorry, can you unmute yourself and speak, please? Chika, can you unmute, please? While Chika is doing that, Chidebe, can you get ready? Chidebe.
Good evening.
Okay, so who is speaking now, please?
Chika is on the line. Good evening.
Okay, Chika, yeah, good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, actually, my question is for Mr. Femi.
Please start your
Femi.
video. Please start your video,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, my
Go ahead.
my question is actually for Mr. Femi. Mr. Femi, I actually agree with you concerning the spirit of bringing back protest. But my question to you is that how do you think that protest, for instance, advocacy from the grassroots, will help us in a situation whereby majority of our youth are unemployed, and in a situation where there is a massive hunger in the land? My question is equal to the fact that I am a lawyer and I'm practicing in Lagos State. Actually, there was a protest that people with disability held at Alausa some time ago concerning the banning of keke. And most of these people were detained and taken to Oshodi Mobile Court. So, actually, I'm the lawyer that represented about 2 of them in that court. But the issue now is that these people have vowed not to go for the protest again because of what the police meted on them, and consequent again. There we said that how can I leave my work, how can I leave my reason and start going for protests whereby nobody cares? So Mr. Femi, how do we go about in this kind of situation whereby people are hungry? Do you think that protests will actually work?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on the last one, I take Abasi. Can you please unmute yourself? Yes, thank you. Abasi Likanu. Abasi Likanu, you're not, you don't have your video on. Can you please put your video on? Go ahead.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's actually what the professor said that I want to just make a comment there. He said he was one of the participants that drafted the portfolio of the APC. And he mentioned, if I got it right, 2011 and so forth and so forth. Since that time, what stopped you calling them to order to implement some of the provisions of that manifesto to date? That is 1. 2, I was one of the people that praised General Buhari for making Nigerians come to senses and stopped importation in 1983 or 80-something there. And Nigeria started manufacturing granite oil, toilet paper, and what have you. And I thought that now coming again, I praise him for exposing the looters of our treasury. But now Nigeria is so divided that I've never seen. I am going to 80 years and I've been 55 years in Germany. I've spoken to most of the leaders of Yaradua when he was here. I spoke with him. Jonathan, I spoke with him. Obasanjo is close to me too. But I have never seen this type of thing before. During the 1959 election, as young students in grammar school that time, as we were coming out, I was pulling officer during that election. Now, till today, I have never seen a minister that comes here to visit his colleagues here. That is never done. Our minister, they come here only to buy Mercedes or go for medical treatment in America or in London. Whereas a minister here goes to America and meets the counterpart in France and interacts. I have never seen a member of parliament sitting on television there discussing with the commoners. Let me use the word commoners, from his constituency or her constituency, to discuss the problems. That is not done. Like our media, news media, our journalists, they are afraid of speaking the truth. For instance, the shooting in the Aso Rock, I watched yesterday, Colonel Hassan and Dr. Ruben Abati discussing. Nobody asked question. Commander-in-chief, the colonel said that it's only the commander-in-chief that can give order. No other person, not even the wife, because it's not within the constitution. What stops the journalists asking, or Ruben and Nico asking question, where was the president? Nigerians should know. These are the things happening in our place. During the crisis, during the election period, we have senior advocates. Some of my friends, I asked, what stops you people asking where they tramped on the provisions of the constitution of the country? Why stopping you was asking questions? So something is wrong somewhere. I asked, is there any mathematics or physics or chemistry that stops Nigeria having power supply? And when you talk of development, it depends on constant power supply. I live in Hamburg. You have Bremen, you have Stuttgart, you have this and that. They generate their own power for their local industries. What stops Nigeria doing this? But every day we read of millions typhoon to Dubai, America, and all this. It's because we are not serious. You put somebody as a governor who has no exposure. If you live in a Niger Bridge, you miss his road. You put him there as governor. Some of them are in the parliament, they can't read even the budget. And he's a parliamentarian. I mean, it's a shame. It's high time we stop speaking grammar, but action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a very high note, and I think all the panelists and speakers are getting ready to take this question, but I think there is one more, pardon me on this, bridging the gap. I think that is Ben Television. And Ben Television, thank you for joining this conversation this evening. Many of you who know Ben Television in the UK on satellite. Ben Television, please, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. It's a wonderful conversation to see some of the people that one identify, all for the sake of our dear country called Nigeria. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
but then one thing that is very, very key, I have heard some of the people asking about why are the National Assembly not doing what they're supposed to do? And this is absolutely correct, because the National Assembly are there to monitor, do the right thing as a representative of the Nigerian people. They have the highest power, the highest authority, more than even the president and the governor, especially at the state level. Now, we have to go back into one key thing that I have been talking about personally from my own corner and other people. The issue of law and order, the issue of judiciary power and authority. Without us actually keying and following rules, the Constitution, either backward or forward, either negative Constitution or positive Constitution, without us actually keying and following this Constitution and the law of that country, it will be very hard for us to achieve what we're looking for. So for me, really, ladies and gentlemen, is first thing and first is let's make sure that the people out there are able to follow the due process and the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Then we can begin knowing that people are afraid to do something because they know the law will deal with it. For now, nobody can tell you what is going to happen tomorrow morning. So our agitation will continue to grow, but I hope that not just from here that we're talking, that we'll be able to come together. And the truth of the matter is we can make a lot of noise, it will not reach anywhere because the people that control the system are the people in the State House of Assembly and the National Assembly. And the truth of what we're seeing, especially given the typical example in Edo State, until when we follow the internal process, then we'll have a long way to go, but it's absolutely achievable. What we aim for as Nigeria, we can achieve within a month and within a year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alistair, for that wonderful submission. Then on this note, I'll be bringing Professor Femi here. Professor, I hope you jotted some of these questions. Majority of these questions came back to you and Katch Ononuju. So I will give you the floor first, then afterwards, Katch will do. If you can just summarize that question and answer them in 3 minutes, if that will be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I say good evening to my friend, Alistair. It's refreshing to see that he's part of this program. In 2009, when I was in Britain, I think he played me a very great host, and I was able to do some of the things I went to do in Newcastle regarding small hydropower, etc. Now, what I want to say in respect of the question, someone asked, how do we get the northern elites to accept restructuring? Well, I believe it's not all the northern elites that are opposed to restructuring. There are a few here and there that understood what it is all about. You know, the general fear is that when you say restructuring, they feel you want to dislodge the North from power, you know, or to remove some of the privileges that they enjoy by virtue of the way the Constitution is structured, in terms of the number of seats they have in the national parliament, the Senate, the House of Reps, that gives them numerical advantage when voting is being done. And in terms of the revenue allocation formula, a situation where a state like Kano has 44 local governments and they collect federal allocation, and the Lagos state that generates 56% of VAT has only 20. That is recognized within the Constitution, though they have some that they resorted to self-help to create. Now, I want to tell you that we need to unbundle what restructuring is. If we need state police, we have Amotekun now. We should ensure that Amotekun functions very well. Anambra has Anambra State Vigilante Service. You should try your best to make sure it functions very well. After all, when Sharia was being declared in the North, the South was not consulted, and it was clearly in violation of the existing constitution. But they went ahead with it, and even till now, you have what they call ISBA. It's a religious police. So we have reached a point where we need to, those of us who share the same conviction, should push our state governments in the Southeast, in the Southwest, and you know, progressive states in the North. Quite a number of people, states in the North are progressive. Those of us who want change are actually more than those who do not want it. But the problem we have is that we are divided. We need to come together and insist on what we want. And if they refuse, we insist we're going to have it. And we're going to have it. After all, independence did not come to us on a platter of gold. We've heard of all those protests by Aba women about the railway, you know, worker strike, etc. The Zikist movement. A lot of them were jailed. So even though it wasn't bloody, our independence wasn't as bloody as those of Kenya, where they had to use Mau Mau, you know, Mau Mau guerrilla group. And it wasn't as bloody as that of Zimbabwe or South Africa, but it was not without a price. We need to explore legal means, legal angles. Some people have proposed that we should look at even the proclamation of amalgamation of 1914, or to look at the 1963 constitution that the military intervention of 1966 truncated. Can we come together and take some legal action to ensure that the status quo ante, pre the coup, is restored? There are peaceful avenues that we can exploit, you know, if only we are willing to come together and speak with one voice. And I want to appeal to Nigerians that the state in which the country is in today goes beyond partisan politics. We must look beyond our political parties now, look beyond our ethnic group and our geopolitical politics, and come together to salvage a common destiny, you know. So after all, when we agitated for independence, the bulk of the conservative North were not part of it. The Sardauna was not an agitator for independence. He actually pleaded that they should give them time. And Nauru moved that we should get independence latest by 1956. We will have obtained it, that was in 1953 March. We will have obtained independence a year earlier than Ghana, which got us in 1957. But because the North said they were not ready in terms of personnel to man their bureaucracy and all that, Awolowo, Zik, and the rest subpedal because they saw promise in a united Nigeria, and we cannot fault their reasoning. I still see promise in a united Nigeria, but on equitable terms, not in a situation where one section will be holding down the other. So we need to come, those of us who share the same thing, the same thinking, we need to come together. Because those who are against us, who are against progress, they are in the minority. They are not so many. That is the irony of it. But they are highly organized and strategic. And they thrive in dividing us, divide and rule. That is the undoing of those of us that know how to speak big grammar in the South, in the Middle Belt, and the rest of it. So, if the North, in quote, the conservative elites do not want restructuring, we force it on them. That is the strategy. And we must not joke with 2023. We must dictate our terms. Then, secondly, somebody asked, those who are handicapped, they protested and they were arrested and all that. You can't make omelette without breaking a neck. When we were fighting for June 12th, people like us were just lucky that we were not killed. Some were killed. Some had their houses burned. Some had to run into exile, and so on and so forth. So I will just say sorry to those handicapped people. My heart bleeds that handicapped people were actually being arrested by our police. Our police, you fear God. But there is no other method. Voltaire, the philosopher, he said the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. If you are not ready to stand up for your rights, as Bob Marley says, there are certain things that will not be considered to you, even though it's your right. So if our state governors are messing up, when we start assembling in front of the State House, and we say we are not going to live here until you provide us good road in this area, our cars are being destroyed, then he will know he has a job to do. So there is no advanced democracy, even as beautiful as Britain, as US is, as Germany, you still see the way, how sensitive they are about the issue of their rights and the obligations of government to the citizen, because they pay taxes. They pay taxes. We should be able to have taxpayers movement, because without tax, government cannot function. We need to see how to organize ourselves. Governance is too important to be left alone to the politicians. Western democracy thrives on the high level of consciousness of those being governed. It is not yielding dividends just by virtue of the grace of those elected into office. They continually keep their leaders on their toes. There is no other method. We need to start mobilizing. In fact, when you are hungry, that's the more reason that you have not much to lose anymore. So those of us who are public spirited should be the ones to mobilize, organize our people into protest groups. We do a lot of that in the Southwest. You know that over the years, if there is anti-SAP riot, protest over fuel, it's usually within Lagos, Ibadan has it. We need to take it to the Southeast. We need to take it to the South-South. We need to take it to the Middle Belt. We need to take it to the far North. Let it not be that it's only religious crisis issues that brings the youths of the far North to the streets, protesting this. Somebody has done that as utter blasphemy and other. Let them be able to come out and say, we need jobs.
Let them come to the street in Sokoto, in Kano, and demand that they need jobs. We want our schools to be equipped. We need, that requires organization. We need civic organizations to organize people to protest progressively. Look at Hong Kong. China is trying to impose draconian laws from the mainland on them. They have been resisting now for months because they know the value of freedom and they are not ready to consider an inch of it. Some of them have been injured, a lot of them have lost their jobs, but they are continuing. So that is that. And then somebody said, how do we get the government to implement some of these things? Well, what I do is that from time to time, I send memos to those I have access to in government, up to the villa. Sometimes what you send elicits some positive response, but sometimes you need to push it. So we will continue to do our best, but like I've said, making government work is a collective endeavor. So I think I would like to stop here and let others, if I have not touched on the comments of other people, pardon me, because we have a limited time and I don't want to dominate the scene.
Thank you very much, Professor Olufunmilade, for your very nice elucidated comments to the questions asked by our audience today. We will still take the final comment from Mr. Katch Ononuju, but please let's allow this Mr. Chidebe to, in 30 seconds, please ask his question. He's been raising up his hand for a long time now. So please, Chide, can you quickly, your video is off. If you can, yes, can you quickly ask your questions briefly, please? Thank you.
Well,
Chide.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this platform. Thank you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this platform. I'm so sorry. I just joined this meeting quite late, but I was able to catch quite a number of issues. My question is nothing much. I think Prof has actually tried to touch on some of those things. Because when we talk about issues that has to do with the problem of this country, a lot of us already know. The South already know. And when I mean the South, I mean the Southeast, the Southwest, and the South. We already know the problem. Including the North Central, we already know the problem. But the problem is that we have a legal situation today that we cannot do anything to those things or to amend any of those laws to give us what exactly we want. And I believe that when we want to make recommendations when it comes to gatherings like this and discussions like this, we should lay emphasis on how do we get these people? If we can't get them, what is our alternative? How do we go to 2014 election? Of everything we are discussing today, are recommended there. They are there. It's not a new thing. During the last election, the Assembly made pronouncement that they are going to support only a government who is willing to restructure Nigeria. The Ohaneze made the same position. The Pandev made the same position. The Union for the North Central made the same position. At the end of the day, nothing. It shows that the people already know what they want. The people already know where the shoe is pitching us. But how do we off that shoe? How do we remove it? Considering the situation of our laws today, how do we maneuver this law? how do we go round it to be able to achieve results? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's take the final comment from Mr. Katch Ononuju, please, and then we proceed to calling it a day.
Thank you very much. First, I will want to tell you despair is not an option. The majority of people in northern Nigeria want restructuring. The Hausas want restructuring. The TV wants restructuring. The Birom want restructuring. The Jukuns want restructuring. The Tangale want restructuring. The Gala, the Brakoto, the Brok, and they want restructuring. The only people who refuse and resist progress are the Fulani, not the Hausa. Please get this properly. You need to also understand the history of the country to understand why this is so. The Fulani are the only people today in the country who historically are not indigenous. They came from Yemen. They were colonial masters over the Hausas until the British defeated them by killing Sultan Atahiru in Gombe. After defeating the Aro Confederacy, and of course, exiling Obavanwen and Benin, they took control. Today, we have independence. In the 60s, the British left, the Fulani stayed behind. They don't have plenty population. But of course, what you're seeing right now fits into that maxim. Every society established through the shedding of blood to maintain control, you must be willing to shed more blood. So that's why you see now we are a democracy. And because the Fulani did not agree to assimilate with the indigenous populations of northern Nigeria, now you're seeing that they are now favor in the democracy. They are really feeling the disruptions that the democracy has brought that has actually tended to undermine their positions of entitlement. That's why we have this crisis. The problem today you have security-wise and in the political space is not from the north. No, it is only from that singular people, the Fulani. And this is why I said earlier, for us to break this, don't look to the docility of the Hausas and others in the north. If the Igbo and the Yoruba can come together, if the Southwest and the Southeast can come together, our problem will be solved. But of course, when you now talk about it, you consider there are among the Igbos and even among the Yoruba, some selfish, self-centered people who do not think about the larger interests of the bigger population, but what they get. We have it today in Igbo land. Somebody, a governor whom I've spoken to face-to-face, I said, the history of these people is, the minute they come in, they will be nice to you, they will smile, but that really is a Trojan horse. They get in there today in his state of ebony. I'm hearing of killings. I see people being raped to death. And I call privately. I said, that man claiming he's from Nasarawa State is not a Nigerian. These are the people Buhari wanted to build Uruga for. Uruga was simple, a settlement for refugees who will come because they had been displaced due to crisis in Mali, crisis in Central African Republic, and those who are living within the wall-off areas of Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, and Mali. These are not Nigerians. There are no Nigerians applying to leave their villages today and go resettle in some hostile communities that own some forest. It doesn't exist. This is where we said, yes, we've made a mistake. Those who made a mistake to bring in Buhari, agree now you've made a mistake. Let us build a brand new consensus to save Nigeria. These people are not going to give up power easily. I said earlier, power never concedes easily. It never has and it never will. It only will concede when you make a demand. Instead of giving you 20 that you're asking for, it will tell you, okay, I'll give you 10, I'll give you 15. So if you are afraid of what will happen when you protest, you're not going to get it. Because why? No country gets well without a struggle. Look at the Irish struggle. As a student in the United Kingdom, I learned about the St. Patrick's Day simply because I was having some Irish friends. Today, the Nigerian problem has been given an international perspective, and I believe that should sustain. The only way you gain your way is to put pressure. And that pressure only comes when you organize to protest. But more than protesting, I am very happy that the people, our brothers from the Southwest, have seen why you cannot trust the Fulani. Let us now work together. It is the only way, nothing else. I am currently, as I'm speaking to you, I'm working with President Obasanjo. He does believe that, yes, some of them made mistakes. Yes, he made a mistake. Some of them were sold on stories of one Nigeria. But then, those who were saying one Nigeria didn't mean one Nigeria. Today, we've seen it. Buhari doesn't believe in Nigeria. If not, why will he be inviting people from Mali and try to put them into bushes across the country? There are no Nigerians from Sokoto, Katsina, Zamfara, or Kano applying to be moved from their homes and to be placed in forests in very hostile communities. It doesn't exist. These are refugees. The reasons why nobody in the APC has found the courage to challenge Buhari in this, I do not know. But I understand that the Southwest people who engaged them in constructive engagement saw this, and that's why they formed a moticum in reaction. But we must go beyond rhetorics and set purpose towards real actions. If, and I repeat, the Southwest is able to bring itself down and go into alliance with the Southeast, because already what I'm telling people when they ask me, what do you think about 2023? I say, no. Buhari has done 8 years of the turn of the North. It now has to come to the South. If you like, let it go to Benin. If you like, let it go to Uzakole. If you like, let it go to Okada. It has to come to the South. And that's the mindset I have. So we in the South must first and foremost sit down and recognize that those who have taken advantage because of their control of the army under dictatorship to write decrees in a way that gives them all the advantage and forced us to also agree to take those decrees at Decree 24, committing them to become a constitution. They will not have the last laugh, no? They will not have the last laugh. We must come together now that we've seen that we've made a mistake to chart a new path for our people. It is the only way to save our country, save our democracy, and set sub-Saharan Africa on its true path to greatness.
Thank you very much.
The Southeast and the Southwest do not come together, we're not going to make any progress. We've seen everything. We've checked all the places that we want to go to. The next thing remaining for us now is cooperation amongst our people in order to impart that nation that we seek to the generations unborn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ononuju, for your passionate delivery. I will just make a very brief comment before we start rounding up. Our topic tonight was meant to be economic. But one thing I'm taking, it has shown that economic problems derive from political problems. That's what I'm getting from the discussion tonight. You cannot solve your economic problem without solving your political problems. And we tried to make it an economic conversation because of this particular comment from the former Vice President, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. I will point it out once more so that we go home with it. We want the government to look at this. And while we talk about politics, let us also talk about economics, because it affects the livelihood of our people. Alhaji Abubakar said, "Nothing has shocked me in my entire life in public service as the revelation from Nigeria's first quarter 2020 final reports in the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy. And this document is produced by Nigeria's old Federal Minister of Finance. He said, Nigeria spent a total sum of 943 billion naira in debt servicing alone. And what the federal government retained revenue for the same period is only 950 billion. Please let us think about that. It means that Nigeria's debt to revenue ratio is 99%. It means that Nigeria is spending almost all our revenues to service, not pay back, to service the national debt. Atiku now said, no one should be deceived. This is a crisis. While we are crying about COVID-19, a more deadly pandemic is coming, economic pandemic. Let us think about that and let us go home with that. And if you have access to the government, please help to ask them, what are you trying to do about this? Thank you very much. We thank all our audience who spent, majority of whom stayed towards the end of the, we also thank our discussants, the speakers, for a very, very, very passionate delivery. I don't know whether Maazi Ezeoke want them to make 10 seconds speech before ending or not. So I don't know.
Thank you very much, Dan. I think we have had a very wonderful evening. For so many people asking, what can we do? I mean, the conversation that we're having today is part of what we are doing. We could have stayed in our houses. We could have been watching, doing one or two things, but we spent our time, we spent our data to be on this conference for the last 2 hours. I must thank the participants and the speakers, Professor Femi Olufunmilade, who is a lecturer, a professor at Igbinedion University, Okada, in Edo State, Nigeria. I know Professor is in Edo. A lot, again, on politics is happening in Edo. We've just learned that the governor who has been having issues with the APC has moved to the PDP. That is politics. And once more to Dr. Valentine Ozigbo, who is the immediate past president, group CEO of Transcorp PLC. And lastly, Mr. Katch Ononuju, Director General at the Heritage Center, Abuja. On that note, I will say thank you everyone for joining this conversation. The conversation continues. Same time next week, if the Lord tallies, we will have a different set of people and a different topic we would like to look into to understand what is happening. Because at the end of the day, the government is not generating and pushing for the conversations that we expect to happen. Rather than all of us sit back, we can all come together to find a solution. And part of the solution, as I mentioned before, could be all the conversations that we have today. Watch out in the newspapers in the coming days, they will be published. And governments do read newspapers, not only cartoons. Sometimes they do read newspapers, not only the cartoon section. So we hope to drive and use the opportunity to drive the needed national conversation. And once more, I will say, have a wonderful evening, stay tight and stay blessed. I remain your moderator, I remain your host, Maazi Tochukwu Ezeoke, and Daniel Elombah is the moderator this evening. And Daniel Elombah, thank you once more for your time. Daniel is the CEO, Elombah Communications, that is part of elombah.com, where you get the news, the authentic news, no fake news as they come. Once more, thank you very much for your time. May God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you.